Ambassador Sarah Chun stood at the massive windows of the Galactic Council chamber, looking out at the swirling stars beyond. The chamber was enormous, built to hold representatives from over 300 different alien species. Today it felt more like a courtroom than a place for peaceful talks. Behind her, the council members sat in their curved seats, arranged in perfect circles that rose up like a giant stadium. Each species had their own section, their own lights, their own breathing gases. The air itself was a careful mix that kept everyone alive, though it tasted metallic and wrong to human lungs. Sarah had been Earth's ambassador for 12 years. She had seen good times and bad times, but nothing like this. The speaker, a tall creature with blue-gray skin and 4 arms, rose from the center of the chamber. His voice echoed through the translation devices that every being wore. The matter before us today concerns the human species and their continued expansion into galactic space, the speaker announced. His tone was cold, formal. For the past 50 years, humanity has shown concerning patterns of behavior. Sarah felt her jaw tighten. Concerning patterns. That was what they called human success now, the speaker continued. They have established colonies at an unprecedented rate. They have developed technology that rivals species with thousands of years more experience. They have formed alliances and trade agreements that benefit them far more than their partners. Around the chamber, alien heads nodded in agreement. Sarah recognized many of them. The Zilani with their crystalline bodies that chimed when they moved. The Vorth, who looked like giant insects but thought with the wisdom of philosophers. The Caliph, whose tentacled forms had once seemed friendly but now appeared menacing. All of them had been her friends once. Or at least they had pretended. To be, most concerning of all, the speaker said, is humanity's military expansion. They claim to build defensive fleets, but their ships carry weapons that exceed all treaty limitations. Sarah almost laughed at that. Treaty limitations that had been written by species who already had massive fleets. Treaties that conveniently forgot to mention that humans had been attacked first, that human colonies had been raided, that human traders had been kidnapped and murdered. A new voice spoke up. It belonged to Praetor Vex of the Dominion, a species that looked like walking skeletons wrapped in black robes. The humans pose a clear threat to galactic stability, Vex said. They reproduce too quickly. They adapt too fast. They learn our technologies and improve upon them within decades rather than centuries. More nods around the chamber. More agreement that humanity was the problem. Sarah had heard all of this before, but never so openly. For years, the complaints had been whispered in side meetings and private conversations. Now they were saying it out loud, in front of everyone. We have tried to guide the humans toward a more appropriate path, said Consul Thrain of the Ethereal Collective. The Ethereals were beings of pure energy who rarely bothered with physical forms. When Thrain spoke, lights flickered around a vaguely humanoid shape. We have offered them positions in our established order. We have shown them how galactic civilization is meant to function. Sarah remembered those offers. Positions that would have made humans into servants. An established order that put humanity at the bottom of every hierarchy. A galactic civilization where humans would forever be the youngest, weakest, most restricted species. They have rejected our guidance, Thrain continued. They insist on forging their own path, regardless of the consequences to others. Sarah almost spoke up then, almost shouted that the only consequences were that other species had to compete with humans for resources and trade routes. That after millennia of having things their own way, the elder races suddenly had to deal with equals, but she stayed quiet. She had been ordered to listen today, not to speak unless directly asked. The speaker raised one of his 4 hands. The time for guidance has passed. The time for warnings has ended. Humanity has shown that they cannot or will not accept their proper place in galactic society. A chill ran down Sarah's spine. She had been expecting this, but hearing it still felt like a punch to the stomach. Therefore, the speaker announced, the Galactic Council hereby issues the following ultimatum to the human species. The chamber fell completely silent. Even the constant hum of life support systems seemed to quiet down. All human colonies outside of the Sol system must be evacuated within one standard galactic year. All human military vessels must be decommissioned and their crews returned to Earth. All human trade agreements and alliances with galactic species are hereby terminated. Sarah felt her heart pounding. They were demanding that humanity give up everything they had built over the past century. Every world they had settled, every ship they had launched, every friendship they had made. Furthermore, the speaker continued, humanity will accept permanent observers from the Council to ensure compliance with all galactic laws and treaties. Human population growth will be limited to sustainable levels as determined by Council experts. Human technological development will be subject to Council approval. It was slavery, Sarah realized. They were demanding that humanity become a controlled, monitored, limited species, a pet civilization kept on a leash. The alternative, the speaker said, his voice growing even colder, is corrective action. Corrective action. Sarah knew what. That meant war, invasion, the complete destruction of human civilization if they refused to surrender everything that made them free. The human representative will now respond to these terms, the speaker announced. For a moment, Sarah didn't move. She had known this day might come, but she had hoped it wouldn't. She had hoped that somehow humanity could find a way to coexist with the elder races, that they could prove themselves worthy of equality rather than just strong enough to demand it. But those hopes were dead now, killed by the cold words of the ultimatum. Sarah turned to face the chamber. Hundreds of alien eyes focused on her. Some looked sad, as if they regretted what was happening. Others looked angry, as if humanity had personally wronged them. Most looked simply indifferent, as if they were watching the extermination of an annoying insect. I hear the Council's ultimatum, Sarah said. Her voice carried clearly through the translation devices. I will transmit it to Earth immediately. You have 72 standard hours to provide humanity's response, the speaker said. We suggest you use that time to convince your leaders to accept these terms. The alternative will be far worse for your species. Sarah nodded once, then turned and walked toward the exit. Her footsteps echoed in the massive chamber. Behind her, she could hear the aliens beginning to talk among themselves, discussing the details of humanity's surrender as if it were already decided. As she reached the door, she heard Peter Vex speaking to another council member. 72 hours should be more than enough time for them to see reason. Even humans aren't stupid enough to choose extinction. Sarah paused at the doorway. For just a moment, she considered turning around and telling them exactly what she thought of their ultimatum. But she didn't. She walked out, down the long corridors of the council station, past the guards and the bureaucrats and the endless streams of alien beings who thought they understood humanity. They had no idea what they had just done. Sarah made her way to the human embassy, a small section of the station that had been humanity's first foothold in galactic politics. It seemed tiny and insignificant compared to the vast territories controlled by the elder races, but Sarah knew something the council didn't. The embassy wasn't humanity's only foothold anymore. It wasn't even their most important one. In her private office, Sarah activated the quantum communicator that would send her message across the galaxy faster than any ship could travel. The device was human-built, based on principles that the aliens had thought were beyond human understanding. The face that appeared on the screen belonged to Director Marcus Webb, head of Earth's Defense Council. He was an older man with gray hair and tired eyes, but those eyes were sharp with intelligence. Sarah, he said simply, I take it the meeting didn't go well. They've issued an ultimatum, Sarah replied. Complete withdrawal from all colonies, decommissioning of all military vessels, acceptance of permanent oversight. We have 72 hours to agree or face corrective action. Webb was quiet for a long moment. So they finally did it. They finally showed their true faces. Marcus, they're serious about this. If we refuse, they'll come at us with everything they have. 300 species, thousands of worlds, fleets that outnumber ours 100 to 1. Webb smiled, and there was something in that smile that Sarah had never seen before. something cold and predatory. Sarah, send them this message. Earth acknowledges receipt of the Council's ultimatum. We will provide our response within the specified time frame. That's it? That's it. Don't say anything else. Don't hint at what our response will be. Just acknowledge and sign off. Sarah frowned. Marcus, what are we going to do? We can't. Fight the entire galaxy. Webb's smile grew wider. Can't we? Sarah, you've been out there for 12 years, playing diplomat, thinking like a diplomat. But some of us back home have been thinking like something else entirely. What do you mean? I mean that for the past 50 years, while they've been watching us expand and grow and thinking we were just lucky primitives, we've been watching them too. Learning everything about them. Preparing for the day when they'd try to put us back in our cage. Sarah felt a chill that had nothing to do with the station's climate control. Marcus, what have you done? What we had to do, Webb replied. What we've always done when someone tries to destroy us. We've prepared to destroy them first. The transmission ended, leaving Sarah alone with her thoughts and a growing sense that the galaxy was about to change in ways that none of the council members could imagine. Outside her window, the stars continued to shine, beautiful and peaceful. But Sarah knew that peace was about to end. The ultimatum had been delivered, and humanity's response was already being prepared. The elder races thought they knew what humans were capable of. They thought wrong. In 72 hours, they would learn the truth about the species they had tried to cage. They would learn why humans had conquered their own world before reaching for the stars. They would learn what happened when you cornered the most dangerous predator in the galaxy. Sarah looked out at those peaceful stars and wondered, how many of them would still be shining when this was over? Director Marcus Webb stood in the underground command center beneath the Rocky Mountains. The room was huge, filled with screens and computers and people working at stations that monitored every corner of human space. This place didn't exist on any official maps. As far as most humans knew, this was just another research facility, but it wasn't. This was humanity's real government. The place where Earth's true leaders had been planning for this day since the first alien ship landed on Earth 97 years ago. Sir, we're receiving reports from all sectors, said Colonel Jennifer Hayes, Webb's second in command. She was a tall woman with short black hair and the kind of eyes that missed nothing. Our people are in position, Webb nodded. Around the room, dozens of men and women worked at their stations. Each one controlled a different part of what they called Project Prometheus, the plan that would either save humanity or get them all killed. What's the status on the Watchers? Webb asked. All active and ready, Hayes replied. They've been sending us intelligence for decades. The aliens still have no idea they exist, Webb smiled grimly. The Watchers were humanity's greatest secret. Humans who had been carefully placed throughout alien society over the past 50 years. They worked as traders, technicians, researchers, even servants. The alien races thought humans were too primitive to be real spies. They were wrong, and the research stations? Online and armed. The aliens think they're studying star formations and cosmic radiation. They have no idea what we've really been building out there. Webb walked to the main screen that showed a map of the galaxy. Hundreds of red dots marked human colonies. Blue dots showed alien homeworlds. Yellow dots marked the research stations that the aliens had allowed humans to build in supposedly empty space. Those yellow dots were placed very carefully. Each one was within striking distance of major alien trade routes and military bases. Sir, incoming transmission from Luna Base, announced a technician. Put it through. The screen flickered and Admiral Sarah Cruz appeared. She was commanding humanity's primary fleet from the moon, where the aliens thought humans kept their main military force. They were wrong about that, too. Marcus, the Council thinks we only have about 200 ships, Cruz said. They have no idea about the Shadow Fleet, Webb nodded. The Shadow Fleet was humanity's real military. Ships built in secret, hidden in asteroid fields and gas giants throughout human space. While the aliens counted the obvious vessels and felt confident in their superiority, They had missed thousands of human warships. What about the biological surveys? Webb asked. Complete on all major species, Cruz replied. Our medical teams have been very thorough. We know the genetic weaknesses of every race that issued the ultimatum. This was perhaps humanity's most ruthless secret. For decades, human doctors and scientists had been studying alien biology under the guise of medical cooperation. They had mapped every alien species' genetic code, identified their diseases, discovered their biological vulnerabilities. The aliens had welcomed this cooperation, thinking it was just human curiosity and desire to help. They never imagined that humans were building a library of ways to kill them, and the AI infiltration, better than expected. The aliens rely so heavily on their computer systems that they never thought to protect against our kind of cyber warfare. We can shut down their infrastructure whenever you give the word. Webb felt a surge of satisfaction. While the alien races had developed incredible artificial intelligence systems over thousands of years, they had grown complacent, they assumed. Their technology was beyond human understanding, but humans had a different approach to AI. They didn't just build smart machines. They built devious ones. Human AI was designed to lie, to hide, to infiltrate. And for 20 years, it had been quietly spreading through alien computer networks like a virus. Status report from Agent Blackwood, Hayes announced. Webb turned his attention to another screen. Agent David Blackwood appeared, and Webb felt a moment of pride. Blackwood was one of their best watchers. He had spent 15 years working as a maintenance technician on the Galactic Council station. The aliens barely noticed him. Sir, I can confirm that the Council believes humanity will surrender, Blackwood reported. They're already making plans to divide up human colonies among themselves. They think this will be over in a few days. What about their military readiness? Minimal. They've positioned some fleets near human space, but it's more for show than actual preparation. They genuinely believe humans are too weak to fight back. Webb couldn't help but smile. The aliens' arrogance would be their downfall. They had spent so long at the top of the galactic hierarchy that they couldn't imagine being challenged by a species they considered primitive. Sir, we're receiving the hourly reports from our embedded agents, Hayes said. Webb watched as data flowed across the screens. Reports from humans working in alien governments, military forces, research facilities, even private homes. Over 50 years, humanity had placed its people everywhere. The aliens had welcomed them, thinking humans were harmless. Dr. Lisa Park, working in the Zelani Medical Research Center, reported that she had access to their genetic modification technology. Engineer Robert Kim, stationed at a Vorth shipyard, confirmed that he could sabotage their entire fleet construction program. Trader Michelle Wong, who had spent decades building relationships with Caliph merchants, reported that she had detailed intelligence on their economic systems. Hundreds of humans, all trusted by their alien hosts, all ready to strike when the word came. Sir, incoming priority message from Earth Defense Command. A technician announced. General Patricia Stone appeared on screen. She was responsible for Earth surface defenses, which the aliens assumed were primitive and weak. Marcus, the orbital defense platforms are fully operational, Stone reported. The aliens think we have maybe 50 weapons satellites around Earth. They have no idea about the 1,000-platform network we've built over the past 30 years. Webb nodded. While alien spy satellites watched Earth's obvious military installations, they had missed the real ones. Weapons platforms disguised as communications satellites, defense stations hidden inside space debris, missile launchers built into what looked like civilian structures. What about the planetary shields? Online and tested. If they try to bombard Earth from orbit, they're going to get a very unpleasant surprise. The planetary shields were humanity's greatest engineering achievement, a network of energy generators that could protect entire continents from orbital bombardment. The aliens didn't even know such technology was possible. Sir, we're getting reports from the colony worlds, Hayes announced. Webb turned to another set of screens showing human colonies throughout the galaxy. The aliens expected these worlds to be defenseless, easy targets for occupation, They were wrong again. Governor Sarah Mitchell from the colony world of New Terra reported that her civilian mining equipment was actually a network of planetary defense cannons. Governor John Foster from the industrial world of Haven confirmed that his manufacturing plants were really weapons factories that had been producing military equipment for years. Governor Maria Santos from the agricultural world of Eden reported that her farming communities were actually military bases disguised as civilian settlements. Every human colony had been secretly militarized. While the aliens saw farmers and miners and factory workers, they were really looking at soldiers and weapons specialists and military engineers. Time check, Webb requested. 47 hours. Until the ultimatum expires, Hayes replied. Webb nodded. It was time to begin the next phase. Send activation codes to all watchers, he ordered. Begin Phase 1 of Prometheus. Around the room, technicians began entering commands. Across the galaxy, humans who had spent decades building trust with alien species received their orders. Dr. Park began downloading every piece of Zalani, genetic research, and preparing to introduce fatal mutations into their medical systems. Engineer Kim started placing explosive charges throughout the Vorth shipyards while uploading viruses into their construction computers. Trader Wong activated hidden transmitters that would jam Calith communications while downloading their financial records and military plans. Hundreds of other agents began similar operations. Systems that the aliens had trusted for decades suddenly became weapons aimed at their hearts. Sir, we're receiving confirmation from the Shadow Fleet, Admiral Cruz reported. All ships are moving to attack positions. The aliens still think we only have a few hundred vessels in obvious locations. Webb watched as the real picture of human military strength appeared on his screens. Over 3,000 ships, all hidden. All armed with weapons that the aliens had never seen before. What about the research stations? All weapon systems online. The aliens permitted us to build these stations in strategic locations because they thought we were just studying space. They never imagined we were building the largest weapon network in galactic history. Webb felt a moment of fierce pride. For almost a century, humanity had played the role of the eager students, the primitive species just grateful to be allowed into galactic society. They had smiled and bowed and acted humble while secretly preparing for war. Sir, incoming message. From Ambassador Chun, a technician announced. Sarah Chun's face appeared on screen. She looked tired and worried, still playing her role as the peaceful diplomat. Marcus, the aliens are getting impatient. They want our response soon. Some of them are talking about not waiting the full 72 hours. Let them talk, Webb replied. In about 20 hours, we're going to give them a response they'll never forget. What should I tell them if they ask for an early answer? Tell them that humanity is carefully considering all options. Tell them we need the full time to make such an important decision. Chun nodded and signed off. She would continue playing her part, making the aliens think that humanity was paralyzed by fear and indecision. Sir, final systems check complete. Hayes reported, all watchers in position. All hidden fleets ready, all secret weapons armed. All cyber warfare systems prepared. Project Prometheus is fully operational. Webb looked around the command center. Decades of planning had led to this moment. The aliens thought they were dealing with a primitive species that would either surrender or be easily conquered. Instead, they were about to face the most prepared and ruthless military force in galactic history. Signal all units, Webb ordered. Execute Prometheus in 18 hours. It's time to show the galaxy what humans really are. As the orders went out across space, Webb reflected on the long journey that had brought them here. The aliens had made a fatal mistake. They had judged humanity by human willingness to cooperate and learn rather than by human history of war and conquest. They had forgotten that humans were the species that had fought their way to the top of a world filled with predators. They had overlooked the fact that humans had conquered every environment on their planet before reaching for the stars. Most importantly, they had failed to understand that when humans appeared peaceful and cooperative, It wasn't because they were weak. It was because they were studying their opponents and preparing for the day when cooperation would no longer be possible. That day had finally come. In 18 hours, the galaxy would learn what happened when you cornered the most dangerous species it had ever produced. The aliens wanted war. They were about to get more war than they could possibly handle. The message began broadcasting at exactly 14 o'clock Earth Standard Time, 48 hours after the ultimatum was delivered. It reached every communication device in the galaxy within minutes, carried by quantum transmitters that the aliens had helped humans build, never knowing they were creating the very network that would carry their doom. Ambassador Sarah Chun stood once again in the Galactic Council chamber, but this time she was not alone. Behind her stood 12 other humans, each representing a different aspect of humanity's hidden strength. They had requested this emergency session, claiming they needed to deliver Earth's response in person. The alien council members had agreed. Thinking they would witness humanity's surrender, they were about to witness something very different on screens throughout the galaxy. On every world where intelligent life existed, the same face appeared. Director Marcus Webb, speaking from the command center beneath Earth. His voice was calm, steady, and absolutely terrifying in its quiet confidence. "People of the galaxy," Webb began. 72 hours ago, your representatives delivered an ultimatum to humanity. You demanded that we abandon everything we have built, surrender our freedom, and accept permanent subjugation. You threatened us with what you called corrective action if we refused. In the council chamber, the alien representatives watched the broadcast with growing unease. This was not the desperate plea for mercy they had expected. You made a fundamental error, Webb continued. You assumed that because humans appeared cooperative and peaceful, we were weak. You thought that because we asked questions and sought to learn, we were inferior. You believed that because we seemed grateful for your acceptance, we were dependent on your approval. Praetor Vex of the Dominion leaned forward in his seat. Something in the human's tone was setting off every survival instinct his species possessed. "Let me tell you what we really are," Webb said, and his smile was the cold expression of a predator revealing its teeth. "We are the species that conquered a death world. We are the children of a planet that tried to kill us with ice ages, plagues, volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, and every other disaster you can imagine. We are the descendants of creatures that fought their way to the top of a food chain filled with monsters. On 1,000 worlds, alien beings stopped what they were doing to listen. Something in the human's voice spoke to the deepest, most primal parts of their minds, the part that remembered when their own species had been prey. When we reached for the stars, you thought you were seeing a young species taking its first steps into the galaxy. You were wrong. You were seeing an apex predator learning about its new hunting ground." In the chamber, Consul Thrain of the Ethereal Collective flickered with alarm. "This is a bluff," Thrain announced. "Humans cannot threaten the combined might of 300 species." Sarah Chun turned to face the Ethereal. "Can't we? Tell me, Consul, how long has Dr. Michael Barnes been working in your energy research facility?" Thrain's light patterns shifted to confusion. "Dr. Barnes? He has been with us for 8 years. He is a valuable researcher. He's also a human intelligence agent," Chun said calmly. "Right now, he's uploading a virus into your collective consciousness network. In about 10 minutes, every ethereal in the galaxy is going to experience what humans call a system crash." Before Thrain could respond, Webb's broadcast continued. "For 97 years, you have watched humans spread across the galaxy. You thought you were observing expansion. You were actually watching infiltration. Images began appearing on the screens. Humans working in alien facilities, humans serving in alien governments, humans living in alien homes, all of them now revealed as agents of Earth. While you debated whether to trust us, we were learning everything about you. Your biology, your psychology, your technology, your military capabilities, your weaknesses. Every human you welcomed into your society was gathering intelligence. Every trade agreement we signed gave us access to your infrastructure. Every cultural exchange taught us how to destroy you. The Speaker of the Council stood up, his forearms trembling with rage. This is impossible. Our security services would have detected such a conspiracy, Sarachun smiled. Would they? Tell me, Speaker, what's the name of the technician who maintains the quantum communicators in this very chamber? The Speaker paused, clearly thinking. I believe it is a human. Johnson, perhaps? Johnson has been recording every private conversation in this chamber for the past 6 years. We know about your plans to divide human colonies among yourselves. We know about your contingency plans to use human worlds as testing grounds for new weapons. We know about your discussions of turning humans into a slave species. The chamber erupted in shocked voices as the alien representatives realized the magnitude of their exposure. Webb's broadcast rolled on, unstoppable as an avalanche. You want to know about human military capabilities? Very well, let me show you what we've really been building. The screens changed to show images of space. What looked like empty regions suddenly revealed massive structures, weapons platforms that had been disguised as asteroids, battle stations that had been hidden inside gas giant atmospheres, entire fleets that had been lurking in dark matter clouds. Every research station you allowed us to build is actually a weapons platform. Every civilian ship we sent to explore is actually a warship in disguise. Every mining operation we established is actually a military base. In the Vorth home system, Admiral Keth was receiving frantic reports from his fleet commanders. The humans had somehow hidden over 200 warships in the system's outer asteroid belt. They had been there for years, completely undetected. You permitted this because you thought we were harmless, Webb continued. You were wrong. We were studying you, learning your patrol patterns, mapping your defenses, identifying your strategic weaknesses. On the Calith homeworld, Defense Minister Carr was discovering that the human trade delegation that had visited last month had planted quantum mines throughout their orbital defense network. The mines were already armed and ready to detonate. But perhaps you think that military force alone will not be enough to challenge the galaxy, Webb said. Perhaps you believe that your superior technology will save you. The screen shifted again, showing images of alien computer systems. But something was wrong with them. Error messages were appearing, systems were shutting down, data was being corrupted. For 20 years, human artificial intelligence has been infiltrating your networks. Your computers, your ships, your weapons, your life support systems. All of them have been compromised. All of them are now under human control. Across the galaxy, alien civilizations suddenly found themselves cut off from their own technology. Ships lost navigation. Cities lost power. Military commanders lost contact with their fleets. In the chamber, the alien representatives were frantically trying to contact their homeworlds, only to find that their communications had been severed. You trusted us with your technology because you thought we were too primitive to pose a threat, Webb said. Another mistake. We didn't just learn to use your technology. We learned to turn it against you. The Zelani Crystalline Council was receiving reports that their entire medical system had been infected with a virus that was rewriting their genetic databases. The humans they had trusted to help with medical research had instead prepared to commit genocide. But maybe you think you can overcome technology failures, Webb continued. Maybe you believe your biological superiority will prevail. Images of alien laboratory facilities appeared on screen. But these weren't normal research labs. They were human facilities, disguised as civilian medical centers, where Earth scientists had been developing something terrible. Every human doctor you allowed to study your biology was also learning how to destroy it. We have mapped your genetic codes, identified your biological vulnerabilities, created targeted pathogens that will affect only your species. Dr. Park, still working in the Zelani Research Center, was quietly releasing an engineered virus into the station's air system. The virus would spread to every Zelani it touched, rewriting their DNA to make them sterile. Similar attacks were beginning on dozens of worlds. Humans who had been trusted for decades were revealing themselves as biological warfare specialists. You welcomed our medical assistance because you thought we were trying to help, Webb said. We were helping ourselves learn how to kill you. In the chamber, panic was spreading among the alien representatives. Some were trying to leave, only to find that the doors had been sealed. Others were attempting to contact their security forces, but their communications were not working. Sarah Chun watched their fear with satisfaction. Did you really think we would come to this meeting unprepared? Every human in this chamber is carrying enough weaponized pathogens to sterilize this entire station. Praetor Vex rose from his seat, his skeletal form shaking with rage. You dare threaten the council itself? We're not threatening you, Chun replied. We're demonstrating that we could have killed all of you years ago if we had wanted to. The only reason you're still alive is because we chose to let you live until now. Webb's broadcast was reaching its climax. You wanted to know what humans do when cornered. Now you know. We become what we have always been beneath the surface. We become the species that conquered a world full of predators. Images flashed. Across the screens, human history in all its brutal glory. Wars, conquests, the rise and fall of empires. The long, violent climb from primitive hunters to masters of their world. We tried to be your partners, Webb said, his voice growing harder. We offered to share the galaxy with you as equals. You chose to make us your enemies instead. The broadcast ended with a simple message that appeared on every screen in the galaxy. You wanted war. Now you have it. In the chamber of the alien, representatives sat in stunned silence. They had come expecting to watch humanity surrender. Instead, they had just witnessed the most comprehensive declaration of war in galactic history. Sarah Chun looked around at the frightened faces of beings who had thought themselves humanity's superiors. The ultimatum is rejected, she announced. Humanity will not surrender, will not withdraw, and will not accept subjugation. She paused, letting the words sink in. Instead, we offer you a choice. Surrender unconditionally, and you will be permitted to exist under human protection. Continue to resist, and you will be destroyed. The speaker managed to find his voice. This is madness. Even with all your preparations, you cannot defeat the combined forces of the entire galaxy. Chun smiled, and there was something predatory in her expression that made the alien council members step back. Can't we? You still don't understand what you're dealing with. You're not facing a species that hopes to win. You're facing a species that has already won. The only question now is how many of you will be left alive when this is over? The chamber fell silent again. Outside, the galaxy was beginning to burn as humanity's hidden forces revealed themselves. The age of alien dominance was ending. The age of humanity had begun. The war began exactly 1 hour after humanity's broadcast ended. It didn't start with massive fleet battles or grand declarations. It started with lights going out across the galaxy, on Vorth Prime, the industrial heart of their civilization. Every automated factory suddenly stopped working. The human engineers who had been helping improve their production systems for 15 years revealed their true purpose. In minutes, the machines that built Vorth starships began tearing themselves apart. Admiral Keth stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching his fleet's computer systems fail one by one. The humans had been so helpful, so eager to learn about Vorth military technology. Now he understood why. Sir, we've lost contact with the entire Third Fleet, his communications officer reported. Their ships aren't responding to any signals. Keth felt cold fear settling in his chest. What's happening to them? Unknown, sir. All we're getting is automated distress signals. What Keth didn't know was that the human AI virus had taken control of the Third Fleet's life support systems. The ships were still functional, but their crews were slowly suffocating as the air recyclers pumped out poison instead of oxygen. On the other side of the galaxy, the Cala Confederacy was discovering that their banking system had been completely compromised. Every credit transfer, every trade agreement, every economic transaction for the past 5 years had been monitored and recorded by human agents. Finance. Minister Yar watched in horror as the Confederacy's entire treasury was transferred to human accounts. Decades of accumulated wealth gone in seconds. How is this possible? Yar demanded. Our financial networks are completely secure. His aide, a loyal caliph who had worked with him for years, looked up from her computer terminal. Sir, it appears that our security consultant, the human Mr. Rodriguez, had access to everything. Rodriguez had been advising the caliph on cybersecurity for 8 years. They had trusted him completely. Now they realized that he had been building backdoors into every system he was supposed to protect, but the economic warfare was just the beginning. On the crystal world of Zelani Prime, something far worse was happening. The Zelani were a proud species, their crystalline bodies beautiful and nearly immortal. They had lived for thousands of years, watching younger species rise and fall. They considered themselves the wisest and most advanced beings in the galaxy. Elder Zareth noticed the first signs of sickness during the morning. Meditation. His crystal formation, usually a brilliant blue, was showing dark spots. Other Zelani were reporting similar symptoms. Contact the medical centers, Zareth ordered. Find out what's causing this. But when they tried to reach the medical facilities, they discovered that all the human doctors and researchers had vanished. Dr. Park and her colleagues had disappeared in the night, leaving behind only a simple message. You trusted us with your biology. That was your mistake. Within hours, the sickness was spreading across Zelani Prime. The virus that Dr. Park had created was rewriting their genetic code, turning their immortal bodies against themselves. The Zelani were dying for the first time in their species' history. In space, the real war was beginning. The Shadow Fleet emerged from hiding like a swarm of deadly insects. Human ships that had been lurking in asteroid fields for years suddenly powered up their weapons and began attacking alien vessels. Captain Sarah Mitchell commanded one of the Shadow Fleet's destroyers. Her ship had been hidden in the Vorth systems Outer Rim for 3 years, disguised as a damaged freighter. The Vorth patrol ships had checked on them occasionally, offering help and supplies. Now, Mitchell was returning their kindness with plasma torpedoes. Target their engine sections, she ordered her weapons officer. We want them disabled, not destroyed. Dead ships don't send distress signals. The human strategy was terrifying in its efficiency. They didn't just attack military targets. They attacked everything. Trade ships, civilian transports, research vessels, even hospital ships. Nothing was safe from human aggression, but this wasn't random violence. Every attack was carefully planned. The humans had spent decades mapping alien supply routes, learning their patrol schedules, identifying their weaknesses. Now they used that knowledge like a scalpel, cutting apart alien civilization piece by piece. The research stations revealed their true nature as the galaxy's largest weapons network. Professor Chun, who had been studying cosmic radiation from Station Alpha 7 for 12 years, activated the installation's hidden arsenal. The scientific instruments were actually massive particle beam weapons with the power to destroy entire fleets. The Ethereal Collective discovered this when their main battle group moved to investigate human activities in the Vega sector. The Ethereals were beings of pure energy, confident that their advanced technology could handle any human threat. They were wrong. Station Alpha 7's weapons were specifically designed to disrupt energy beings. The particle beams tore through the ethereal ships like they were made of paper, scattering the crew's energy forms into empty space. An entire battle group destroyed in minutes by what they thought was a harmless research facility. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy. Research stations revealed themselves as fortress worlds. Mining operations turned out to be military bases. Trade posts became command centers for human operations. The aliens had allowed humans to build this network because they thought humans were just curious scientists and ambitious miners. They never imagined they were helping humanity construct the most advanced military infrastructure in galactic history. On Earth, Director Webb watched the reports flowing in from across the galaxy. The war was progressing exactly as planned. Better than planned, actually. The aliens were even more vulnerable than humanity's worst-case scenarios had predicted. Sir, we're receiving surrender offers from 17 minor species, Colonel Hayes reported. They're asking to be placed under human protection. Webb nodded. This was expected. The smaller alien civilizations had always been bullied by the major powers. Now they saw a chance to escape that oppression by joining the winning side. Accept their surrenders, but keep them under close observation, Webb ordered. Some of them might be genuine, others might be trying to infiltrate us. What? About the major powers? Webb looked at the tactical display. The Fourth Hegemony was in chaos, their fleets scattered and their industrial base crippled. The Caliph Confederacy was bankrupt and their leaders were hiding in bunkers. The Zilani were dying from the plague. The Ethereal Collective had lost half their military force. They're not ready to surrender yet, Webb said. They still think they can win through superior numbers. We need to show them how wrong they are. The demonstration came at the battle of Kepler Station, a major alien military base that controlled one of the galaxy's most important trade routes. The aliens had assembled their largest fleet there, over 5,000 ships from a dozen different species. They thought they were setting a trap for the humans. They were actually walking into one. Admiral Cruz commanded the human response. From her flagship, the Prometheus, she had only 800 ships, but they were vessels that no alien had ever seen before. The Shadow Fleet's most advanced warships, built with technology that combined human innovation with decades of stolen alien secrets. All ships begin Phase 1, Cruz ordered. The human fleet didn't charge forward like the aliens expected. Instead, they simply stopped and began broadcasting a signal that the aliens couldn't identify. Within minutes, they found out what it was. The signal activated human AI viruses that had been hiding in the alien fleet's computer systems for years. Suddenly, alien ships were turning their weapons on each other. The Fourth Admiral watched in horror as his own vessels began firing on their allies. "What's happening?" he demanded. "Sir, we've lost control of our targeting systems," his weapons officer replied. "The computers are firing on their own." It wasn't just the targeting systems. The human virus had taken control of navigation, life support, communications, everything. Half the alien fleet was destroying itself, while the other half tried desperately to regain control of their own ships. "Fall back," the admiral ordered. All ships fall back, but the ships couldn't fall back. Their engines were under human control now. Some ships were flying directly into asteroid fields. Others were accelerating toward the system star. A few were simply opening their airlocks and venting their crews into space. "This is Admiral Cruz of the Terran Fleet," came a broadcast from the human ships. "Surrender now, and your crews will be rescued, continue fighting, and you will all die." The alien admiral looked around his bridge. Half his crew was unconscious from oxygen deprivation as the life support systems failed. His weapons were firing randomly at targets the humans chose. His engines were pushing his ship toward a collision course with a nearby moon. He had no choice. "All ships surrender," he broadcast. "Power down weapons and prepare for boarding." The Battle of Kepler Station lasted exactly 47 minutes. The aliens lost over 3,000 ships, the humans lost none. Word of the battle spread quickly through alien space. Humanity had just defeated the largest fleet ever assembled with a force 1/6 its size. The psychological impact was devastating. But the humans weren't finished. While the aliens reeled from their defeat, human forces launched attacks on every major alien world simultaneously. Not invasion forces, but something worse. They attacked the infrastructure that kept alien civilization running. Power plants exploded, communication networks went dark. Transportation systems collapsed, water treatment facilities stopped working. On Dominion Prime, Praetor Vex sat in his command bunker, watching reports of chaos from across his empire. The humans weren't trying to occupy Dominion worlds. They were making them uninhabitable. "Sir, we're receiving reports from the agricultural worlds," his aide announced. "The human bioweapons have contaminated the food supply. Our people are starving." Vex felt his skeletal form trembling with rage and fear. "How many worlds?" "All of them, sir. Every agricultural world in the Dominion has been hit." The humans had studied Dominion biology for decades, learning exactly what they needed to survive. Now they were systematically destroying it. The proud Dominion, masters of 100 worlds, were facing extinction by starvation. Similar attacks were happening throughout the galaxy. The humans had identified what each species needed to survive, then targeted those exact systems. They weren't just fighting a war. They were conducting a carefully planned genocide. The aliens finally understood what they were facing. Not a desperate species fighting for survival, but an apex predator that had been preparing to hunt them for nearly a century. The war was only 6 months old, but already dozens of alien species had gone extinct. Hundreds of worlds lay in ruins. The great galactic civilization that had existed for thousands of years was collapsing, and humanity was just getting started. The aliens had wanted war. They were learning that humans didn't just fight wars. They won them completely and permanently. The galaxy burned while Earth's children claimed their inheritance among the stars. 3 years after the ultimatum, the galaxy was silent. Director Marcus Webb stood on the observation deck of the Terran Administrative Station, looking out at what had once been the Galactic Council headquarters. The massive structure still floated in space, but it was empty now, dark. The aliens who had once ruled from these chambers were gone. Some were dead. Many were dead. But some had been allowed to live, under very specific conditions. "Sir, the morning reports," Colonel Hayes said, approaching with a datapad. She still served as Webb's second in command, though her title had changed. She was now Director of Alien Affairs for the Terran Hegemony. Webb took the pad and scrolled through the information. Production quotas from former alien worlds. Tribute payments from surviving species. Status reports from human governors, who now ruled over what remained of galactic civilization. It made for interesting reading. The Vorth hegemony no longer existed. Their industrial worlds had been stripped of useful technology and turned into mining operations run by human overseers. The Vorth themselves worked in their own former factories, producing goods for their human masters. Admiral Keth, who had once commanded the pride of the Vorth fleet, now managed a fuel processing plant on Vorth Prime. He was lucky to be alive. Most of his fellow admirals had died when the human biological weapons were released into their fleet's water supply. The Calith Confederacy had fared slightly better, but only because they had surrendered before humanity decided to wipe them out completely. They were allowed to maintain limited self-government in exchange for providing financial services to the hegemony. Their banking expertise was useful, so they lived, but they lived as servants, not equals. Minister Yar had become quite skilled at managing human economic interests. He had learned that cooperation meant survival, while resistance meant death. It was a simple lesson that most aliens eventually understood. The Zilani were nearly extinct. Dr. Park's biological weapon had been specifically designed for their crystalline biology, and it had worked perfectly. Of the billions of Zilani who had existed before the war, fewer than 1 million remained. They were kept alive as curiosities, living in protected reserves where humans could study their unique biology. Elder Zareth was one of the survivors. He spent his days in a research facility on Earth, where human scientists examined every aspect of his crystalline form. He had become a living museum piece, a remnant of a species that had thought itself immortal. The ethereal collective had simply vanished. Their energy-based life forms had proven too difficult to control. So, humanity had developed weapons that disrupted their quantum existence. The ethereals had been scattered across the void, their consciousness dissolved into random particles. Console. Thrain had lasted longer than most, but even pure energy couldn't survive when humans decided to unravel the fundamental forces that held his species together. The Dominion had fought the longest and suffered the most. Praetor Vex had refused to surrender even when his empire was collapsing around him. He had declared that his species would rather die than submit to human rule. Humanity had been happy to grant his wish. The Dominion worlds were empty now, their skeletal inhabitants reduced to ash by weapons that targeted their calcium-based biology. Entire star systems that had once housed billions of Dominion citizens were now silent tombs. Webb finished reading the reports and handed the pad back to Hayes. What's the status on the integration program? Proceeding ahead of schedule, Hayes replied. The surviving species are adapting to human rule better than expected. Fear is an excellent teacher. Webb nodded. The integration program was humanity's method of incorporating useful aliens into their new empire. Species that could serve human interests were allowed to survive, but always under human supervision. Those that couldn't contribute anything useful were eliminated. It was efficient, practical, and utterly ruthless. Any resistance movements? A few small groups on the outer rim worlds, but nothing significant. The lesson of the Dominion has been very effective in discouraging organized rebellion. Webb smiled grimly. The complete annihilation of the Dominion had indeed sent a clear message to the galaxy. Submit to human rule or be erased from existence. Most species chose submission. Sir, incoming transmission from Governor Chun on New Terra, a technician announced. Webb walked to the communication console. Sarah Chun, the former ambassador, now ruled over one of humanity's most important colony worlds. She had traded diplomacy for direct governance, and she was very good at it. Marcus, the quarterly tribute collection is complete, Chun reported. The Caliph financial networks have transferred the required resources, and the Vorth industrial output is exceeding targets by 12%. Any problems with the alien workers? Nothing significant? A few minor protests on Vorth Prime, but they were quickly dealt with. The workers understand that cooperation ensures their continued existence. Webb nodded. The alien workers were kept alive because they were useful, but they were never allowed to forget that their lives depended entirely on human mercy. It was a delicate balance between exploitation and extermination. What about the breeding programs? On schedule, we're maintaining sustainable population levels for all tributary species. High enough to provide adequate labor, low enough to prevent any thoughts of rebellion. The breeding programs were perhaps humanity's most coldly practical innovation. Each surviving alien species was allowed to reproduce only under human supervision. Population levels were carefully controlled to ensure that aliens remained useful, but never numerous enough to pose a threat. Sir, we have a visitor, Hayes announced. Ambassador Krell of the Outer Rim Coalition is requesting an audience. Webb turned to see a small, gray-skinned alien being escorted into the chamber by human guards. Krell represented one of the few remaining independent governments in the galaxy, a collection of minor species that had so far avoided human attention. Director Webb, Krell said, his voice trembling slightly. I come bearing a formal request. From the Coalition. Speak. We wish to negotiate our surrender, Krell said quickly. The Coalition formally submits to human authority and requests placement under the protection of the Terran hegemony. Webb studied the alien for a moment. The Outer Rim Coalition controlled some useful mining worlds and had a reputation for skilled craftwork. They might be worth keeping alive. What does the Coalition offer in exchange for protection? Our complete submission, Krell replied immediately. We will provide tribute, labor, and resources as required. We ask only to be allowed to continue existing under human supervision. It was the same request that hundreds of other alien groups had made over the past 3 years. Most had been accepted, though always on human terms. A few had been rejected when humanity decided they had nothing useful to offer. The Coalition will be granted tributary status, Webb decided. Human governors will be appointed to oversee your worlds. Your populations will be subject to human breeding regulations. 20% of your annual production will be paid as tribute to the hegemony. Krell's relief was obvious. Thank you, Director. The Coalition is grateful for human mercy. Mercy, Webb almost laughed at the word. This wasn't mercy. This was livestock management. Humanity was keeping certain alien species alive for the same reason farmers kept cattle and pigs. They were useful. After Krell left, Webb returned to his observation of the galaxy's new order. Through the massive windows he could see human ships patrolling what had once been alien space. The vessels bore the symbol of the Terran hegemony, humanity's new galactic government. It was a simple design, a blue world surrounded by stars, with a sword cutting through the center. The message was clear. Earth had conquered the galaxy, and humanity ruled through strength. "Sir, incoming priority message from Earth," Hayes announced. The screen activated to show the face of President Martinez, Earth's elected leader and the nominal head of the hegemony. In reality, Webb and the other military commanders made most of the important decisions, but Martinez provided a civilian face for human rule. "Marcus, I've just finished reviewing the annual report," Martinez said. "The numbers are impressive. Galactic production is up 30% from pre-war levels. Resource extraction has increased by 50%. Human population growth is accelerating on all colony worlds. The conquered territories are proving quite profitable," Webb agreed. "Alien labor is efficient when properly motivated." "What about expansion plans?" "We're preparing to explore beyond the galactic rim. Long-range scouts have identified several neighboring galaxies with intelligent life. The hegemony will need new territories to support our growing population." Martinez nodded. "The cabinet has approved the expansion budget. You'll have all the resources you need for the next phase." The next phase, Webb felt a surge of anticipation. Humanity had conquered one galaxy in 3 years. How many more could they claim in the next century? After the transmission ended, Webb walked to the Central Command Center where human officers monitored the galaxy's pulse. Screens showed production reports from 1,000 worlds, tribute payments from hundreds of species, patrol reports from the vast fleets that kept the peace through overwhelming force. This was humanity's true nature, Webb reflected. Not the diplomatic facade they had worn for so many years, but the ruthless pragmatism of a species that had clawed its way to the top of their world's food chain. The aliens had made a fatal error. They had judged humanity by human words rather than human history. They had forgotten that humans were the species that had driven their planet's apex predators to extinction. They had overlooked the fact that humans had conquered every environment on Earth before reaching for the stars. Most importantly, they had failed to understand that when humans appeared peaceful and cooperative, it wasn't because they were naturally gentle. It was because they were studying their potential enemies and waiting for the right moment to strike. The galaxy had learned this lesson, but too late to save themselves. Now, as Webb looked out at the stars that belonged to humanity, he thought about the final message that had started this war. The aliens had demanded humanity's surrender. They had threatened corrective action if humans refused to submit. Instead, humanity had provided its own corrective action. They had corrected the galaxy's power structure. They had corrected the alien assumption that humans were weak. They had corrected the mistake of threatening the most dangerous predator species in known space. The ultimatum had been answered completely and permanently. In the distance, a transport ship was arriving from the former Zalani worlds. It carried the last survivors of that ancient species, beings who had lived for thousands of years and thought themselves immortal. Now they would spend their remaining lives as subjects of a species they had tried to destroy. It was fitting, Webb thought. The galaxy had wanted to see what humans would do when cornered. They had learned that humans didn't just fight back. When threatened, they made sure the threat never existed again. The message was clear, written in the ashes of 100 dead civilizations. Earth had tried to be the galaxy's partner. The galaxy had chosen to make Earth its enemy instead. Now Earth was the galaxy's master, and that would never change. Humanity had conquered the stars, just as they had conquered their world. And like every other challenge they had faced, they had won completely. The universe belonged to Earth's children now, and they would never let it go.